Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. You might see some new faces on here. We just like to keep things changing up around here. My name is Celia Christensen, and I am RealWealth Realty's marketing manager, and it is my pleasure to host our weekly webinar today. I am really excited about this webinar. We've been trying for quite some time to put this together, and we wanted to make sure we did it right. So we have been working on this for a while, and we are so thrilled to be joined by a couple of experts that I will introduce you to, and they're probably familiar to you, and then another new expert that you probably don't know very well. All right, so the strategies we talk about today may not be appropriate for you in your particular circumstances, so please consult with your personal accountant, tax advisor, legal representation to discuss what might be best for you. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. And of course, real estate purchases, like all investments, are subject to investment risks, including the possible loss of amounts invested. While every effort is made to maintain accurate and current information, both us and our teams that we work with, the possibility of errors and or updates always exists. So please do your due diligence. I love that Leah, who always hosts, and Ben before her would say, trust us, but verify. Again, so today, I'm Celia, and I will be more moderating today our esteemed panel of experts. First, I want to introduce you all to Grant Anderson. He is one of RealWealth's two. Grant and his wife, Rebecca, are our new property team managers, and we are so happy to have them join us. Grant, welcome to your first ever RealWealth webinar.
Great, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Grant, can you give us like your 15-second bio?
Yeah, I started investing back in 2001. I bought a single family house and rented out the rooms. That was kind of started of my investing career, and that was out in Sacramento, California. Built up some rental properties, ended up moving out to Indianapolis, sold everything in California and did 1031 exchanges to Indianapolis. Now I just own a portfolio of rental properties, and glad to be here to help out everybody with the property teams and hopefully bring on some more. And we have some great teams that we're working with currently.
Awesome. Yes, I love it that RealWealth, we really try and educate our members. You know, that's kind of the area that I'm working in. Grant and Rebecca and his wife, they will also continue this education and fostering a relationship with our teams. And I feel like that's what is the secret to our success, is that we have such great relationships with our teams, and then we also do our best to foster these relationships and education with our members. So we are so excited to have Grant, and hopefully we'll get to have Rebecca join us on an upcoming future webinar as well. Then we also have Alexander, or Xander Cruz, who you've seen around, I'm sure. Xander, thank you for joining us from Baltimore.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Celia.
Of course. And Myra, I'm sure people know Myra as in Missy and Myra, joining us from Cincinnati.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to it. You guys do a great job of educating. You really do.
Oh, thank you. Well, it really makes a huge difference, right, in the teams that we work with. And just so everybody's aware, we have monthly property team meetings. So we're meeting with all of our teams virtually at least once a month and discussing current issues and where people are finding success, or, you know, where they might be struggling. And they share with us and they share with each other. And it's just invaluable to our members. So we really appreciate you both being here. And I think what's interesting about our panel today is Grant, who, as he said, has been an investor for a long time. And he not only he uses property managers for some of his investments, but he also self-manages. So he has an interesting perspective that we will get to learn from. And then Xander and Myra, their companies both have in-house property management. So they are like a full turnkey provider, from buying, rehabbing, through to the property management. So we will talk more about that, and how maybe are there any different questions you need to ask an in-house property manager versus a property team with a third party property manager. So let's go on to our next slide, talking about our agenda for the day today. We're going to talk about how to identify the right property manager when you're looking at a new property. Do you want to self-manage? If not, how you can find the right property manager for you and your property. Understanding what is your role as a passive investor, and how do they place qualified tenants? What questions should you be asking the property manager, and what questions then they are asking prospective tenants? Maintaining your investment, what that looks like. We talk a lot about buy at RealWealth. We talk to investors about buy and hold strategy. We don't talk about the hold a lot. So this is the maintaining your investment. We're going to focus on the hold today. What does that look like? And then into this last one, having realistic expectations as a passive investor, and what you can honestly expect from your property manager. Okay, so starting off, we're going to hear from Grant. And again, Grant both self-manages and uses property management. So Grant, what have you found in your experience? What has helped you find the right property manager for you and your properties?
Yeah, well, it is difficult to find a good property manager, and obviously the ones that we have on here today are great property managers. Some of the things that you obviously want to ask your property manager when you are looking for one is to find out like what type of properties and how many properties they manage. For example, if they're managing properties in a C-class neighborhood, but your properties are in an A-class neighborhood, the types of tenants that they're dealing with are a little bit different. So knowing that, they're going to have to treat them a little bit differently. Same flip-flop that if they only manage A properties, then C properties are definitely going to be a little bit different type of a tenant. As well as how many properties do they manage. There are a lot of real estate agents out there who try and do 1 or 2 property managements, and sure, they could do a decent job, but they don't necessarily have all the systems in place and understand all of the laws. Just like the 2 panelists that we have on here today, they have systems and they understand how to get things done. Are they properly licensed? I know some people out from being out of state, they may not know if somebody is going to be properly licensed, and whether or not they are licensed to actually be a property management company. So you want to make sure that they're licensed. You want to find out a little bit more about what their screening process is, because that is a huge thing in managing a property. How are they screening their tenants? What are they doing to make sure that those tenants are the best tenants and are going to pay? There's obviously no guarantees. They're not going to guarantee that this person's always going to pay, because things happen in life. So something may happen, but the better screening that they can do, they can figure this stuff out up front. What is their fee structure? So how do they set up their fees to you? Are you paying monthly? Is it a percentage? Is it a flat rate? Are they upcharging for maintenance? Are they upcharging for repairs? None of those things are bad. It's just good to know, because one property manager may charge less and it may look more appealing because their monthly charge in the beginning is lower, but as they add more fees, it becomes a different at the end of the day. So it's good to know what their fee structure is. I know some property management companies will also charge tenants for items, like they'll upcharge them for like having a stove, or I've heard of just other little charges that they will charge their tenants. And it's good to know so that you understand what's happening as well. Do they use a property management software, and how are you receiving your monthly statements? Are you receiving monthly statements? If they don't have a software, that is to me kind of a red flag, because softwares are really helpful in knowing what the statement is, how you're getting it, where it's coming from. If they don't have that stuff, it's more difficult for an investor to be looking at what's going on the property management side. Do they offer routine inspections? How often do they do that? Do they go in every year to inspect these properties to make sure there's no leaky faucets? Tenants are not always the best at reporting things to property managers. Sometimes they're afraid, oh, this person's going to think I'm a bad tenant because they're not, I'm giving them too many projects, and I don't want to be that tenant. But I would prefer to have them call me if there's a leaky faucet or something's leaking and that can cause more damage. So I want to know about that. So having those routine inspections every so often, that gets them into the door, lets them look at the property, see how it's being treated, make sure that it's being treated properly and things are being fixed. Some property management companies do offer a eviction warranty. That's something that's fairly new. Not everyone does that, but again, that goes back to their screening process and how many times they actually evict. But it is good to find out if they do offer that. Some will offer it within the first year, some won't. I'm not actually sure if Alexander or Myra actually offer something like that. So yeah, those are the things that I would look at for going to a property management company.
I think these are such great questions because every property is going to be different. Every market is going to be different, and every company, the property manager, is going to be different. So these questions are invaluable. And I can tell you, even, I'm not the one talking to our members every day, but I know that we had an investor who let us know, they said, I didn't know that they charge first month's rent to place the first tenant. Have you guys ever told us that? Is that on our webinar? Is that on your webinars? And yes, that is on our webinars, but there are so many details that are different. So we try and do a good job of educating on those basics. But then there will be nuances with each company and with each structure of what type of management you're looking for. So going forward, and you've selected a property manager, now what is your role as a passive investor? This is kind of the question of, how do I manage my property manager? Do I need to manage them? And again, every company is going to be different, but Myra, what is your approach to working with investors as landlords, but hopefully we're hiring you so that we can be passive landlords? How do you all approach this?
So I agree, absolutely. The goal is that you are a passive landlord. And then we'll get into some things that you are absolutely going to have to be required to be passive when it comes to some items with tenants and placing and qualifying tenants. But yes, your role is to manage your manager. Our expectation is that you are absolutely involved. Our goal would be that you take 15-20 minutes a month, and that really should be what it takes for you to check in, see what we're doing, and be up to date and current with what's going on with your property. Again, that's a goal. You have issues, it may take you a little bit more. I always tell everybody as we onboard, the first thing, to me, the most important thing is to be kind. Kindness will get you everywhere. It's what our approach is to our investors. It's our approach to your tenants. Kindness will take you a long way in our company and in this industry. So first of all, be kind. Second, our expectation is that you are absolutely reading your emails, your notifications, and your reports in a timely manner. I can't stress how important that is. We ask our owners to please review your monthly statements within that month. We have a 60-day look back policy. We ask that if you've got issues, please bring those up and let's get those resolved within those 60 days. To go further back is really difficult sometimes. So please open the statement, please review it. Just understand that some issues are going to take time to resolve. If you have a tenant who is in eviction, you can email every single day, but they are not going to have your answers until they've been to court or they've worked out a payment plan, or, I mean, there's some pretty hard and fast dates there. It's not instant. The same's true with some of your maintenance. You're going to get a notification that you've got something going on maintenance-wise at your property. They're going to give you that notification when they know you've got an issue. That does not mean we have all your answers. Sometimes it takes getting a contractor out on the roof. Sometimes we're going to be halfway through before, do we really know what that new whole service water line to your property is going to cost you? Probably not until they start digging. So some things are going to take time to resolve. Our team's going to do our absolute best to keep you in the loop. And I know it's frustrating. And I, myself as an owner, understand that gut check. You get a notice that says, I've got a problem with my roof. And, you know, I myself go, oh my God, did a tree come down on my house? Or do I just need a chimney cap? I mean, you know, what? So, but again, some of that's going to take time to play out. Probably one of the most important things that you absolutely have to be timely about are your lease renewals and your rental rates. Here you're going to get from us, you'll get some notice that you've got a lease renewal coming. We do that months in advance of when it's going to hit. And along with that notification are our recommendations on here's what we would do. Here's what this market is doing. Here's how the property and your tenant are performing. Here's our recommendations for your increase of rental rate. It's up to you. You can absolutely follow those recommendations. Don't follow them. I tell you what, Celia, you guys sent out an email just a week or two ago about really being a conscientious capitalism. Mm-hmm. I loved that email. If your investors didn't get a chance, if they would go and kind of take that in, I think it's fabulous. You know, yes, the market is different now than it ever has been before, and rental rates are through the roof, and the demand for rental properties is absolutely at an all-time high. But you do need to recognize that we do also have tenants that are struggling. And, you know, to come in, you've got a tenant who's been there for 2-3 years, and now you want to up their rent in one fell swoop by hundreds of dollars. You know, if you yourself haven't had that hundreds of dollar increase, I just ask that you would be mindful. And again, we're going to send you reports that go along with our recommendations. And again, what's critical is that you respond in a timely manner. The way we handle it is you get that notification. Here's what we recommend. We give you, I believe we're up to 2 or 3 weeks now to respond. And it's very clear, if we do not receive your response, the default is our recommendation.
Great. To me, that sounds, and again, everything is relative, right? And
Right.
so when we say passive investing, we've done over the years, as long I've been with RealWealth 6 years, and we used to say passive investor a lot more, I think, than we do now, because it is not purely holding long-term buy and hold properties, even with a property management, is not 100% passive, right? If that's what you're looking for, then maybe single family rentals or long-term buy and hold might not be the best option for you, because and as you say, that you still need to be monitoring. And I've talked to numerous investors who are like, yeah, it gets tricky when I have multiple homes in multiple markets and they all have different renewal dates, right? So that can be tricky. And again, going back to what Grant said about the importance of the software program that they use and how you can educate yourself, it is imperative that you at least have an idea of those dates, and you can do that with these monthly statements. I think that's a fantastic point. And I will say also, the conscious capitalism statement that you referred to, I just put it in the chat if people want to refer to it. It is kind of in response to this idea of prices have risen like crazy, rents have also risen. It's our official statement on the responsibility and sort of the ethical question of how do we raise rents, and if so, how much? And inflation is out of control, right? So if anyone wants to take a look at that, that is on realwealth.com. I put the link in there. And I think that's a valuable resource. And I love this idea, and we'll go on to this next section of working with your property manager, asking these questions. Should I raise the rent? And I think one of the really important things to be talking to your property manager about is what kind of tenants are you attracting through your different methods of marketing and advertising. So again, every company is going to be different, but I think there are a lot of basics and that everyone does, but also some things that you could be asking. And so I'd like to talk to Xander about what do you all do in Baltimore, and your situation is unique in that you're one of the teams we work with that has a fair amount of what we call Section 8 tenants. So that process can be different, but how do you all approach finding, placing qualified tenants in a timely manner for your landlords?
Sure. Well, off the bat, it starts with marketing, which I really didn't put on here, but just very briefly, we have professional photos taken of every single house, and so they look really good, and we'll use those in not just some of the traditional free rental websites, but we use some paid services as well, like the MLS system and Zillow as well. Our goal is to reach as many potential residents as possible. Everybody looks online, that's how they find properties, so we want to put our best foot forward with those pictures. And then from there, we'll handle the inquiries. And as Myra said earlier, the demand is as high as I've ever seen it too. It's really crazy. I mean, we're talking about well over 100 leads every single day. It's almost impossible to keep up. That being said, it's a funnel. So it starts with a large number of leads, and we will start contacting the leads and doing some initial screening to make sure that we're not showing a property to somebody who's not going to qualify. And then we'll get into our formal screening, which is our full-blown application. Like Grant said, that's an online system. I think that is a good question. There's no reason to not be using an online system at this point. So the system that we use Also includes a third-party background check. So when we get an application, we're going to get everything about this person. It's going to tell a pretty big part of the story. And in our market, one of the things that shows up is actually any civil cases that this person has. So if this is somebody that is lawsuit happy, it's going to show up on our screening, and that could be a potential red flag, not necessarily an automatic disqualifier. But we have the classic other things too, like the credit report, income, and of course their identity. We're going to verify their income with pay stubs. And then there's going to be numerous automatic disqualifiers, such as a felony conviction, such as a previous eviction, such as a large open collection on their credit report, especially if it's to a utility company. We're going to have some big red flags and disqualifications there. As far as our Section 8 process, it's actually identical. And the only difference is that we are not going to use the income qualification, because that's probably half the reason they have a housing voucher in the first place. So we'll verify the voucher, and then we'll still go through the same exact process, reviewing everything we can on their background. And not listed here, but one of the other really important things is their landlord history. And we won't just go to their current landlord, we're going to go to their past landlords too. We actually ask for their last 3 addresses and the landlord information. And that is probably the best indicator. And the reason you don't want to just stick with the current landlord is because in theory, there could be a current landlord that's looking to get rid of them, and they might give them a glowing review, whereas a past landlord's going to probably be pretty honest. So we want to see their payment history. We want to see the condition they left the house in. Would this person rent to them again? Have they paid their utilities on time? Has there been maintenance issues? Has there been lawn care issues? Whatever the case may be, it's a pretty detailed report. So start to finish, this whole process takes us a couple days at least. And it's our biggest, I'd say it's one of the most important things that we do. Because at the end of the day, everybody on this call knows that, placing that tenant that's going to be a problem child is not what any of us want to do.
Right. That's just going to create more problems for yourselves in the future. I know that we've had a lot of people ask this question, and some landlords, some owners want more information during this process. What does that typically look like? For Xander, I'll ask you, and then Myra, you as well. What is the landlord or the homeowner's involvement in this process? And I suspect every owner is different. Some probably are just like, I trust you, just do it, and let me know when you got somebody. Is that something you work with the owners on, or typically this is who we have and you can choose? What does that look like for them?
So I can answer first. We are extremely cautious with fair housing laws, and because of that, we would not have an owner making a direct decision on, either choosing between residents or accepting or denying a resident. We have the same screening criteria for every single potential resident, and that's what we're going to stick to. We couldn't have a case where on one house somebody was rejected, but then on the next house they applied for, they were accepted. Because at the end of the day, if the only reason was because that owner said they didn't like that potential tenant, that will be a big liability. So we'll keep our owners posted, of course, on the status of things, and they would definitely be involved if there was a decision on terms. Maybe if it was going to be an 18 or a 24-month lease, or there was some other term, they want to move in the house, but they want a fence across the backyard. Whatever the case is, we'll of course be bringing that to the owner, but not the individual applications or tenants.
Okay, Myra, what about you all?
It's very similar for us as well. Again, like Xander mentioned, fair housing is it is a big deal. And what people need to understand is that's really the biggest reason that you have us in place as your property manager, is it takes you out of the liability. And that at the end of the day, that's really what you're after. You know, tenants with fair housing, they can get free attorneys and you can't, and we can't either. So you really want and need us on that front line. We are very transparent with the process of selecting and qualifying tenants, and we absolutely share that all day, every day. But when it comes time to, you know, when I get the question of can I see my top 3 choices? Can I select my tenant? The answer is an absolute no. That's a hard line in the sand, and we will not cross it.
Great. That's excellent advice. And I think that's the key, is this is one of the advantages. This is why you hire property management. And I mean, just out of curiosity, Myra, how many units do you all manage? And Xander, same question for you, just to give people an idea of expertise here.
We're just over 2,300 doors at this point.
Wow. It's a lot of doors. It's a lot of tenants, a lot of screening.
Yeah, it's
Xander, what about you?
It's 2,300 families that we're managing on your behalf.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
Well, we're small potatoes compared to that. We're 450, but we'll be over 500 by the year end.
Still, wow, that's a lot. So you've placed a tenant. You've got a great tenant for me in my property. Moving forward, what does this look like for me? In terms of, again, this is going back to like the hold part, the buy and the hold, maintaining my investment. What did this look like? And someone just asked a question that I think this absolutely falls into and goes with this first point here. Ed asked, I have suffered from sticker shock when hit with a bill to get a property rent ready after a tenant moves out. What can I do to minimize those costs? So this is a great question. You will have turnover. It's just a fact of life. So what can they do, and what do you all do to help prepare them, be ready for that, and also minimize their costs to keep that turnover cost and the loss of income as low as possible?
Yeah, that's a big one. And I think you have to plan for maintenance, and that is your responsibility to do so at the onset. We ask all of our owners to please put away reserves for yourself. It's minimum here. We're only holding $200 in reserve for each of your properties. But our recommendation, and honestly, it comes from Missy with 25 years of property ownership, and it's how she weathered the last recession. You have reserves for yourself. We recommend that you do $5,000 for each of your first 5 properties, and that then you put away about $3,000 for every property after that. If you'll do that, then your income property should not ever affect your lifestyle. And that's kind of the goal.
Mm-hmm.
As far as cost of turn, there have been some big changes within our industry pre-COVID and post-COVID. And I know that we're all feeling it now. And I think a lot of that comment about there being some sticker shock, we are all having some sticker shock. Pre-COVID, we would say to our owners, you should probably plan on a typical turn being about 1 month's rent. If you had a tenant who left the property, as we all hope they do, or broom clean and very little damage, not buggy, you could plan on 1 month's rent to get that property turned. But COVID hit, and now we are all dealing with material costs, which are, you know, off the charts, and material shortages. And that has absolutely been a game changer with your turn budget. I'm seeing that a typical turn now is more like 1.5 to 2 times 1 month's rent. And that's just the world we live in right now. And I don't know when it'll come back. But that's what I'm telling people now. You should plan 1.5 to 2 times a month's rent on a typical turn. The other thing that's really important is when you purchased that property, you had a home inspection. And that was your responsibility. And it is also your responsibility to keep that, to maintain that record. I'm not asking that you know it, but you know, you're going to know it better than my maintenance team is going to know it. So let's say you do get a big ticket something, you know, you've owned the property for 5 years and now you have notification that you need a new water heater. The first question is going to be, well, I bought the home 5 years ago. How can I possibly need a new hot water heater? I'm going to ask you to go back to your home inspection, and when you bought it 5 years ago, they told you then it was already 10 or 15 years old. So shoulda, woulda, coulda been planning for a hot water heater. One of the things that we will do with our team is we do warehouse a good bit of material. So as an owner, you are going to get to take advantage of a lot of what we can do for discount. And so that absolutely helps with some of those big things. You know, we warehouse furnaces, we warehouse water heaters, we warehouse all of our flooring. We warehouse most everything that are the big ticket items. So we're absolutely doing our best to keep your costs down. But we don't like it either. You know, nobody here is happy that your turn's going to take 2 months rent. But that is the world we live in now. A lot of times I get questions about, I got this notification, can I get your opinion? You know, do I do a roof repair, or is it time to do a roof replacement? Again, I go back to nobody knows and cares for your property as well as you should and do. So you should know, hey, I'm on my 3rd or 4th or 5th repair. Put a call into the maintenance manager. Tell me more about the repair. Am I just talking about flashing around the chimney, or is it time for me to do a layover or replace the roof? If you find that it's something big, or you find that, you know, I don't think I agree with, this seems out of line to me, I don't think it's out of line to ask for a second opinion. But I'm going to also respectfully remind you that we are absolutely getting the best price in this marketplace. The contractors that work for our rehab and our maintenance and our re-rents teams, they run with us on fixed pricing. So you're already going to be most likely at the best rate possible. I get a lot of people saying, well, can I go and get my own roof quote? Can I go and get my own roofer? It's your property. I will highly recommend, and I will fight you tooth and nail to the bitter end to say, please don't. I think you're making a huge mistake. If you find a better price or a better quote on that roof, I will tell you, I think there's probably a really good reason why, and I think it's in the details, and I think they've left that out. So that's my take on second opinions.
Yeah. So you're entitled to them, and I think this is I think again this goes back to the relationship you have with your property manager, and the reason why you hire them is to have their local expertise and knowledge. But it does get tricky, and especially as things have become more expensive. I think that a lot of owners are going to second guess some things at least once over the course of owning the property. And I think it comes down to as well, like, what are your expectations long term? Grant, let's talk about what you have found in your 20 years of investing as quickly as possible, so we can get to all these questions. We've got some awesome questions coming in, but for your property manager, what are realistic expectations?
Yeah.
What can we expect?
Yeah, first off, not all tenants are going to think the same way as you. I always think, okay, I want to make sure I make these payments. I want to make my rent payment. I want to make my mortgage payment. Not all tenants think that way. Some of them will go out and buy a brand new pair of shoes or a brand new car, and then you come and you say your rent is late. You have a brand new car, right? We've all had those types of things happening, or somebody passes away in their family and they couldn't go to work, or they decided to repair their vehicle instead of paying their rent. So things happen. It just depends on how you handle those situations. And most property managers, like Myra said earlier, you try and work with them. You try and figure out what we can do. Eviction is usually the last option, because just as we were just talking about, that turnover is more expensive than it is to try and work with that tenant. So try to work with them, try and keep them around. Don't let them go, especially if they've been a good tenant. Now, if they're in their first or second month and they're constantly late, having issues, maybe eviction might be needed. But if they've been there a year or 2 years, try to work with them. They're human, they're people also. Try and treat them that way. Maintenance and repairs, they're going to happen. They need to be done. You need to provide a good property for people to live in, and that's habitable, and that can they want to live in. If you're providing places that don't have, if the AC breaks and you take 3 weeks to fix it or something like that, people don't want to live in that type of situation. Where would you want to live? I always think about how I would want to be living in a property. If the AC goes out, I want it fixed as soon as I can possibly get somebody. Things happen, might not be right away. Have proper insurance. Insurance is key, because we had a big fire in one of our properties, and it was 100% covered by our insurance. And we had 98% of it, basically 98% of the house burned down. So we got almost a brand new house for literally $0 because the insurance covered it. So if you have the proper insurance, that's going to help out. And have insurance that actually helps you make your replaces your lost rents. So you can actually collect rents while it's being fixed back up. Make sure, as Myra said, you have a reserve, and especially if you have a mortgage on it. If you have free and clear, you can, you don't have to have as high of a reserve. But if you have a mortgage, you definitely need a higher reserve. Review your monthly statements. I know Myra talked about this a little bit earlier as well. I say monthly, definitely. If not monthly, quarterly. You're going to get in trouble if you have something over 60 days dealing with Myra. But property management, they don't remember things that happened to your property a year ago. If you're asking them, oh, what happened here? They're not going to remember that. It's going to, I don't remember things that happened 6 months ago. So how are they going to remember things that happened a year ago? Listen to what your property manager says. They're coming from experience. They have knowledge. You've hired them because you want their experience and their knowledge. So if they give you advice like, oh, I don't think you should do that, really take their advice, because that's what they're there for. And property management is a tough business, and they're in business to make money. So they need to make money. That's why they're making money off of the fee for that property management. They're human as well, and they can make mistakes. So, again, be kind, like Myra, kind to people, understand that mistakes happen, understand that if you're kind to them, they're going to definitely be kind back to you. I mean, that's the way you should treat everybody. Your tenants, your property managers, your contractors, anybody you deal with, you should be kind to them because that goes a long way.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this because everybody knows there's like two sides. One is the success of your investment property comes down to property management, right? And how the home is maintained and managed. The flip side is being a property manager is extremely difficult. And so that success is hard earned, right? So yes, I think that being kind is key in anything. Secondly, I think for me, the key is communication. And if you're not reading the stuff that comes in, then you are potentially going to be surprised at some point and have someone like Myra say to you, well, did you read your monthly statement? So
I can see here on August the 5th, we did notify you.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I want to get to these questions because we have so many great questions. Before we do that, Grant, can you advance to the next slide and I'll show people where you can find out more information. Again, Myra is with the property team in Cincinnati and Xander is with the Baltimore team, CR of Maryland. So if you go to our realty portal, realty.realwealth.com, and then up there under single family rentals at the top, all the markets will pop up. When you click on the market, this is the first page that will come up, meet the team. And typically this is our most recent webinar with the team. We break it up into sections so you can find exactly what you're looking for. So in this case, this is the most recent webinar we did with Xander, I believe it August. I think that's when we had you on last. He talks about his property management. Yeah, so we have the same thing with Cincinnati. You can find most of the basic numbers like tenant turnover, how often does it take to put a new tenant in? What is your monthly management fee? What is your tenant, your lease up fee? All of those kinds of things for each of the teams we work with can be found in our realty portal. So I definitely wanted to say that. And then advance one more slide and we'll give contact information for both Myra and Xander here. And let's get into these questions. One of them, Thomas asked, and I think Xander will come to you. Again, this is, Xander giving his opinion and how things work with his company. But what is the role of the property manager when things go south? For example, long-term non-payment or vandalism, insurance claims. How, again, I assume this comes down probably to a case-by-case basis in a lot of ways, but what do you all do to work with the homeowner on these types of situations?
Sure. The short answer is everything that we can. Again, like Myra said earlier, some things just take time, but we're going to do everything that's necessary on behalf of our owners. So let's say it's a non-paying tenant, like you said. We're going to handle filing the failure to pay. That's not something that our owners are going to do. They're hands off for all of that. So I think the important thing for the owner is maintaining communication and making sure they understand where we are and setting proper expectations of what's happening next. And we have now 2 people on our staff that's what they do full time, is correspond with our owners, keep them up to date, answer questions, and they're dedicated to that. So, there's certain things that we can't do. Let's say there was an insurance claim like you referenced. We can help setting up an estimator and getting the adjuster out and providing access. But at some point, the owner's going to have to sign those documents and authorize the work, where we aren't going to be able to do that. because we're not the owner. So they're in very bizarre situations like that. You know, there comes a line where we're going to need the owner to do certain things, but that's pretty rare. Most of what happens we can handle.
Great. Awesome. Myra, do you have any thoughts on that?
Very similar. And then, you know, I will say that, you know, if you have we are pretty strict with our tenants. They know right out the chute what our expectations are for them. Rent is due on the 1st, it is late on the 5th, and you will have a notice on the 6th of your eviction. That happens every single time without exception and without fail. What happens next, though, absolutely involves you as the property owner. Your tenant reaches out, they want to make a payment plan. It is yours to accept or not. When the eviction goes forward, same thing. I mean, you know, we work really hard. Like I don't know if it was Xander or Grant, but you know, we are not in the eviction business. We are in the rental business, and it is in everyone's best interest that your property be occupied. So we are working with your tenant right up until the day of set out. And if you've agreed to take a payment, then we have somebody there when the bailiff shows up. And if they have a payment, or they have payment in full, or they have a partial payment, you'll know it right then, and it's your decision to make. So we are absolutely going to involve you with those kind of decisions. And again, you know, everybody here cares deeply, not just for your property and you as an owner, but also those families and your tenants that we're serving. So we're working really diligently with them. I mean, you know, we're part of the best things that we get to do is we make a difference in our communities and in our neighborhoods. And we do that one property at a time and one family at a time. So, you know, everybody here is very, you know, we're very aware of it. And it's one of the things that we find to be the most rewarding part of what we do.
I think that's great. And yep. Exactly. I remember talking with Leah College. She and I were talking about investing, and she is really on my case too. My husband and I have been investors in the past, and we sold our rental property. And so now my goal is to get back in. And she just always is saying to me, we got to get you in. And we start talking about different investments, but this is what made me think of it. And she said, the thing about real estate investing is you're providing a home for someone. And I love that perspective, Myra, in that this is, I mean, it is a business, right? It is an investment to make a difference in our own lives financially, but you are providing a home, and we are in the business of providing homes for people. This isn't just a property. So I love that perspective. An easy question here, I should know after all of these webinars. Monthly management fees. I cannot remember. Myra, let's ask you first. The first question, what is your monthly management fee, and has it increased over the last 2 years?
Has not increased over the last 2 years. We have an 8% plan and a 10% plan. So, and the 10% plan has, like Grant mentioned earlier, it'll have some eviction warranties and some tenant placement warranties with it that the 8% plan will not have. But we have an 8 and a 10.
Okay, great. And Xander?
Our standard is 8%, has not changed in the last 2 years. We do not have a 10% plan, just the 8% plan. And we do actually not charge for the first tenant. So when you first buy a house, we place that first tenant. It's just included in your sale price. There's no additional charge.
Awesome, great. Okay, so what if a tenant isn't consistently paying, do you contact the owner? I'm assuming the answer is yes, but I guess the question is, when do you get in contact with the homeowner when their tenant? Because I know, Myra, I've heard you say that before. Your rent is due, and then the next day it's late. When do you bring the homeowners in on this? Myra, again, we'll start with you. When do you let them know that you've got this problem?
You're going to know pretty soon into the whole thing. I mean, the way Appfolio works is it does push out notifications to the owner with activity as it's going on. The other thing that we did during COVID especially is set up quite a few automated reports. So you're going to get a statement and a report at the first of the month. You're going to get another one that's called, the report comes out, I think it's the 6th and the 15th. Delinquent as of is the name of that report. You open it up and you know right at the top of your report in that statement, my tenant paid, my tenant did not pay. So those are, and again, you're going to get that on the 6th. And then let's say they were delinquent on the 6th, and on the 15th you get the report and clearly they've paid. Also by the 15th, somebody's reaching out, if they have it, to say, your tenants reached out, here's the issue they're having, will you agree to this payment plan? Again, the goal is to keep them there.
Great. And Xander?
Yeah, very, very similar here. I think Myra, myself, and Missy have always gotten along because we have very similar ways of doing things. So rent grace period is to the 5th. On the 6th, we're going to file. Our owner's going to know within the next 2 weeks at the most if that payment is not being made and the eviction process is proceeding. And like she said, very similar if the tenant's interested in a payment plan, or if they are going to apply for back rent assistance, which is still being done here, the owner would be notified of that too. And the back rent assistance, what that is basically a government funded program to help people that have fallen on some kind of hard time to pay that back rent that is owed. So it's a great benefit to the owner. It doesn't cost anything extra, and we have had success with it too.
Great. We are at the top of the hour, but if you all are okay to just go a few more minutes, we can answer a couple more questions. Does that work for everybody? Okay. We have another question from Jeff that I think he speaks for, most of our investors, that they are, in being an out-of-state investor, and again, you guys are unique in that you're property management in-house with the property team. So when do you become involved in the process pre-closing? When does that handoff, if you will, happen from selecting a property, going under contract with the property team? Xander, when does the property manager become involved in that process?
I typically have our new investors have an onboarding call either right before or right after closing, just depending on everybody's schedule. And then that's when they'll begin executing the management agreements, and we'll walk them through. We have a whole onboarding call process, so we'll walk them through everything they need to know. Here's how this works. We'll get your online account set up so you can log in and view your portal, and here's who you're going to communicate with if X, Y, or Z happens. So we don't typically do that until closing, because prior to that, they're going to be talking to me anyway. And being in my position in the company, I can really answer 99.9% of any property management questions.
And that's the great part about working with in-house property management, right? Is that the left hand does know what the right hand is doing.
Yes.
To use that analogy, Myra, what?
Yes.
Go ahead, Grant.
To add to that, because I know both of them are traditional turnkey providers where they're handling both the property before and then after. I think if they are dealing with another property management company that isn't providing that property, they should get them involved as soon as possible, because they should be looking at rent comps, they should be looking at the property itself, what work it needs to be done. So bringing your property management company involved as soon as possible, as soon as you're going to either make an offer on this house or look at this house, because that's part of your evaluation, to evaluate whether or not this is going to be a good deal or not. Obviously, Myra and Alexander are they provide the home, so they know all of that information prior to. But if you're not dealing with somebody like that, bringing them in as soon as possible is the best practice.
Yeah, and I will say, just for the sake of education, that the other property teams that we work with that are in our network that don't have in-house property management, typically, then sometimes it's a sister company, or it is a third party, completely separate company that they recommend. Again, it's someone that they are recommending who works and manages in this niche of the type of market, the type of property. So, and I will also, I'm surprised we haven't gotten this question. We usually get it, is do we have to work with your property management? When I know that all of our teams will say it's not absolutely necessary, but I think we at RealWealth would say, why wouldn't you? But so I think it's important to know then that when you're finding these property managers, it's that you're working with someone who works with this type of property, this type of tenant, who will be attracted to this type of home. Do I get, Jeff, I'm not sure I understand your question. Oh, okay, no, I think I do. So Jeff is asking, in terms of your property management, Myra, I'll ask you first. Are they always speaking with the same contact, or do you have multiple people who will just, whoever gets the call takes it? Or do they have one assigned manager?
So for us, yes, you have one point of contact, and as you are getting ready to close, that transition takes over. So you're going to transition from my team and I are taking you through the rehab and the purchase of that property, and then you're going to transition over to our investor customer service department, and they absolutely spearhead everything from that point forward. They have the impossible task of herding cats in this office. So 12 managers, 12 departments. You get one statement on, let's say you own 5 properties, and now I need to ask a maintenance question on property A. I've got a question about my tenant on property B. I don't know what I'm looking at. It looks like a mistake on property C. Who do I reach out to? I don't, who do I reach out to if it's maintenance? Who do I reach out to if it's collections? So for us, it is one point of contact in the investor customer service department. You're assigned, at this point, I have 2.5 people. So you get one of 2, and you're going to work with Amy or Clara, and they're going to, like I said, they're going to herd the cats for you. They will go and glean all that they can from the manager. They also have the ability within our company to escalate something directly to the manager. So Clara may field a call and say, you know what, this is escalating, and I think they really should be talking to the manager in the re-rents department. they've gotten a budget, they have questions, they're not satisfied with the first round of answers that I had, let's have them talk to Dawn. So I do like the way that we handle our investors. Tenants, we also have a whole separate customer service department just for your tenants. You know, if you've got issues with a property, so does your tenant. So we try to have customer service on for all of everyone we consider a customer. And that's true of our tenants, that's our owners, that's our contractors. I mean, we consider a lot of people our customer.
Right. Xander, what about you all in terms of contact with the homeowner?
So we have a 2-person owner's concierge team. There actually is just one email address though that our owners have to know, and that's owners@crmaryland.com. Super easy. That will distribute to both of those team members, and actually also myself and one other person. So not one person, but they have 2 people dedicated to them. And that team doesn't answer tenant calls either. It's a separate team that works with the tenants. So there is going to always be somebody available during normal business hours to respond, and they frequently respond after business hours too, which we greatly appreciate.
Awesome. One thing I want to point out, I want our investors to, I love this concept of we're here to work with you, and also RealWealth, we may not be in the property management business, us, but we are still here. I think that that's something that we still work on. We're still talking to the teams. Once an investor has purchased a property, Grant and I, with the rest of the realty side, we're on a meeting every week, and part of that meeting is we talk about any issues or anything that might need to be resolved in terms of once someone has bought a property. Sometimes they'll say, well, I'm having an issue with property manager. They've come back to their investment counselor to talk about these issues, and then we have a resolution process that we go through. And then Grant and his wife Rebecca, they go back to teams, and we're constantly working things out. And I think it's no surprise, at least to us internally, why we brought Xander and Myra on for this. Not only are they well-oiled machines when it comes to property management, but also the relationship we've had working with them on behalf of, our clients, our investors who have become their investors, and the communication that happens between all of us post-purchase, to me, is phenomenal. And we don't want anyone to feel, and I know Myra and Xander, you all feel the same way, like we don't want anybody to feel like, well, you're on your own, this is your property. No, we're not your business partners. However, there are people who are still in your corner, and communication solves 99% of our problems. So I wanted, for the sake of time, I have 2 more really great questions. One quickly for Grant. What is the best strategy to switch management companies?
The best is to find the next one that you're going to use. And then I've only done this a couple of times, but basically you're going to want to get the 2 management companies to talk to each other if you can, so that they can do that transition and help you transition over, because they're going to have to transfer the security deposits, the leases, any keys that they have. All that needs to be transferred over. So try to get the 2 property management companies to talk to each other. I know sometimes that might be difficult if you're leaving on bad terms, but if you could get them to talk to each other, they should be able to handle that.
Great. Okay, and the last one here for, I love this question. This is also from Dominic. Xander, let's start with you. What are the most common mistakes, regrets, or learning opportunities that you have had in dealing with property owners?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Well, again, we are
I guess
human. Oh, go
this
ahead.
is another great question in terms of what do you want property owners to know, right? What have you learned from them, and what do you hope that they would learn from you?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of, not to repeat what we've already said, but we are a team. We really do have the same interests. We want that property to perform as well as you want it to. That being said, there are just times where things happen, and I feel a level of regret every time something bad happens. Every time a tenant moves out early or doesn't pay their rent, it weighs on us, and we take it really seriously. So, are there things we could have done differently? Maybe we shouldn't have placed that tenant. Did we miss something on the screening? Sometimes there's not always an answer. But that being said, if we mess something up, if we get a code violation and we send it to our accounting team and they forget to pay it, that's on us, and we're going to make it right. And we'll own it. We'll say, you know what, we screwed up. We didn't verify payment, and we're going to make it right for you. So there are plenty of things that come up and happen that we can address. I think it's more often than not just human error that occurs. We try to automate as much as we can so that there's not human error, but every once in a while things happen.
Yeah. Things do always seem to happen at some point. Myra, same question.
Okay. Well, I will say that I do believe that property management will give you more opportunities for personal growth than just about any other industry out there. Same with Xander. We are absolutely human. We do make mistakes. I try to always explain to our investors and our owners, everyone here, most everybody in our company, if not all of our management team, have skin in the game. We all have investment properties. We are all dealing with the same struggles you're dealing with. Tenants that are not performing, property that's got a big maintenance issue. They made a mistake on my owner statement last month too. I'm in the same pool with 650 of the rest of you. And so, I just ask, again, my number one point that I started with is just be kind. As things escalate, I always invite someone on my email, if I don't like how this conversation's going, why don't we plan a phone call? I feel like, a lot of times you can pick up the phone and have a much better understanding of someone's perspective, what it is, what's got you so stressed out, where are you coming from with this, why so angry? But, I think, again, I just remember that everybody here really, truly does care about you as an owner, your tenant is a family that we're serving, the community that we live in. We do feel like we are real estate partners with everyone who buys property with us. And we try our best to be mistake free and to do the right things. If we make a mistake, I can say that we will fix it, and we'll do our very best to do the right things the right way every time.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I can certainly verify that we have found that to be true on our end as well. That when we have issues, we go to the teams and say, look, one of our members is saying this, and these teams, these property management companies, if they're not responding, I mean, we don't work with those companies, right? So we can verify that what they're saying is true, that we know that they're going to work with you. But it is also that we have to, as homeowners, have to have realistic expectations. Grant, if you'll advance for me, we'll just go forward. The next one I think is a question slide, and we'll just go to the end here. But this has been an extremely valuable discussion, and property management is one of those things that it is so important. It is so difficult to do well, and we are so grateful for the expertise and knowledge that you all have and willing to share with us. I believe we got through all of our questions. If you didn't get your question answered, feel free to either contact these teams, information is on our website, or your investment counselor. You can always reach out to them. It's just their first name at realwealth.com. And let us know if you have any questions. We are more than happy to answer them for you. But Myra, Xander, and Grant, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us here and for your knowledge. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Celia.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.